Welcome to the Red, White, and You Show with Dean McMurray, the military medium.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another great episode of the Red, White, and You Show with the military medium. Today, folks, I have a great guest with me, Johnny Moe. You might know him. He has a podcast out there called Straight Talk with Johnny Moe. He's a suicide survivor, recovering alcoholic, a veteran, 23-year Airforce veteran. Johnny, welcome to the Red, White, and You Show, man.
Hey, Dean. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was great when we were able to connect and start chatting. Now, for those that don't know you, I know I gave a little bit about being a suicide survivor, recovering alcoholic, podcast host, dad, veteran, in Johnny's words, who is Johnny Moe?
Just a guy trying to get through life now, I'm a father, a husband, a brother, an uncle, shade tree mechanic, airplane connoisseur, I just really want to help guys, the standard vet, that's where my passion is now. The guy that didn't get blown up, that doesn't have the TBI, that didn't lose a limb, that doesn't have a Purple Heart, and let them know that, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to struggle with day to day. It's okay to not know how to be a dad or a husband, a father. So many of us struggle when we get out and we don't know why we're struggling. I was never blown up. I didn't get shot at. My buddy didn't die in my arms. But man, I did 23 years in the military, and these civilians are jacked up. They don't understand. I don't fit in with anybody. So I just try to let guys know that, look, man, if I can come from being an alcoholic, suicide survivor, on the brink of losing my home, my wife, my kids, everything that I had ever worked for, if I can go get help, you can too. And maybe this will help you out. So that's kind of who I am nowadays.
That's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful way to summarize that, and one of the things too is so many times do we take the stance of, or I shouldn't say we, but some folks just take the stance on one side or the other when it comes to maybe when they're focusing on the military, right? It's all combat now. And, the time frames of maybe post-Vietnam or the times between the first Desert Storm, these, whether it's ground combat conflicts or whatever, we see this environment or this community of because there's an influx of combat veterans, right? And this culture of saying, well, I'm only going to focus on combat veterans. Well, there's a lot more than people. There's a lot, there's other people that didn't go to combat that still served honorably, that still did a kick-ass job in the military. And now they're going to fall through the cracks when they're finding, or they're trying to find a sense of purpose or belonging, right?
Right. It's very difficult. Well, the VA system, it's jacked. There's no doubt that the system is jacked. But in order to be a veteran, in their eyes, you have to have 90 days of non-school orders. So you have to have 90 days of active duty. And there are plenty of guys out there, my father included, who was a National Guardsman from 65 to 73. Now, if you know anything about the history of America, from 65 to 73 was a pretty trying time in our country with military and Vietnam and, all that stuff going on. My dad is not considered a veteran because he was never put on orders.
According to the VA system.
According to the VA, right. And then you've got guys now, like reservists will go and do annual tour, but their entire 30-day set of orders or 90-day set of orders will not be an activation. So they don't count. So they're not included in that. I'm willing to help anybody that's ever served. You ever sign that dotted line that you swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, I'll help you out. I don't care what the VA says. I don't care what your DD 214 says. If you need help, I'm going to help you out. One of my experiences on active duty, I did 9.5 years active duty in the 90s, and I had told myself I don't want to become institutionalized. I don't want to become that guy that all I know is the military. When I retire or get out, the only thing I can go do is a DOD job supporting the same unit that I supported before I got out. And lo and behold, I became institutionalized. I had that type of thinking, that mindset, that drive, that goal oriented behavior of get it done at all costs. And when I came out to be a civilian, I didn't fit in real well. I'm here to tell you, though, I was in HR or the manager's office a lot with you got to slow down. You know, our parts don't come in hours. They come in days or weeks. You know, it doesn't have to be finished today. You can take, you know, tomorrow and recover your paperwork. And I'm like, no, man, it was hard. And so many vets struggle with that, just trying to learn how to be a civilian,
Right.
you know, and it's a shame. And I hope that answered your question, because I got off on a tangent.
No, this is great. I was getting, well, and one of the things I was going to ask you, you know, Johnny, is talking about, you know, diving in the world of Johnny Moe, because, you know, right before we came live, I asked you, you know, anything else, and you were like, yeah, you know, I'm a recovering alcoholic and a suicide survivor. Well, that speaks to so many people on a veteran level, because, you know, you talk about, you know, wanting to help those, that anybody that signed on the dotted line, but more specifically, the ones that are kind of falling through the cracks, right? The ones that maybe aren't being recognized as veterans, but they served, or, hey, they didn't go to combat, or whatever the case is, right?
Right.
And everybody in between. But I want to share is that, you know, there's so much more to your story, because, you know, here you are juggling being a you know, a veteran, but not only that, a husband, and a dad. And, you know, and how do you do that when at the same time, you know, you're, you know, trying to cope drinking, right? And when was it, Johnny, that you kind of decided, like, holy shit, I got an issue here. I got a problem. You know, was it a culminating, like, smack your head into the wall type deal, or?
Funny. If you have a moment and we're not on a time limit, I'll go through it. You asked how I do it. I do it one day at a time now. I mean, I really do. Sometimes 1 hour, sometimes 1 minute at a time. I don't have the urge to drink anymore. That kind of went away. The urge to drink went away about 3 months after I quit drinking. But I'm gonna have to go find some Kleenex here. My last drunk was my daughter's 13th birthday party. My oldest daughter, the one I told you is in the service now. And I had just woke up in a bad mood. And the bad mood had stemmed from weeks of drunk every night, blacking out, throwing up, my wife having to wake me up. And all I could think about was drinking. I got to drink, I got to drink, I got to drink. And it was either Budweiser or Jack Daniels. And Trish left me, my wife Trish left me with Julia and Jeffrey, my two little ones, and said, I'm leaving for the day with Tiffany. You have to pick the cake up at 3:00. My mom and dad will be here at 4. The kids will be here at 5. Don't be drunk. Well, now I'm really mad. So I'm frustrated the whole time because I can't drink, because I got to put my kids in the car and drive 15 miles down to the bakery to get the cake. And I put the kids, I think, 2008, Julia would have been 6, Jeffrey would have been 3. Put them in the cart, and they're just being kids. And I can just feel myself. Dean, I can see myself now walking into that Walmart, just sweating and angry and pissed off. And I throw a couple cookies at both of them, blue for the boy, pink for the girl, walk to the back, grab 2 cases of Budweiser long necks, and then go get the cake. And I go get the cake and I drive out and I put them in the car and we go home. And I think I had 4 beers down within the first 30 minutes. Everybody's coming over. I blacked out at 4:30. I don't know what time I finally got kicked out, but I have splots of memory recall. I chased my daughter and her friends all around the house. We lived out in the country, had about, I don't know, 8 acres between me and my neighbor. Couldn't find them. I was paranoid. I was pissed off. Got in my car, left, turned around, came back, fought my cousin. Ran my head into a fender, 2 fenders on 2 different cars. Um, I got up and laughed at him. I'm like, you ain't got enough ass behind you to take care of me. You know, one of the things when I drank, I became 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and I would take on anybody. I took on some pro football players in Las Vegas. That didn't end very well.
Wow.
You know, I took on the cocky little guy. It didn't matter.
Sure.
So my wife kicks me out. I call my dad. My dad has to come pick me up. I get up the next morning, and my dad says, well, let's just go get her some flowers. Everything will be fine. I'm like, no, Dad, I don't think you understand. I really messed up this time.
Right.
So he takes me all the way home, and Trisha says, I'm leaving. You've got the kids. I'm not going to be here while you're here. So it was April 27th, 2008. I took my laptop into the garage. The kids were all outside playing, and I just did a Google search for how do I know I'm an alcoholic. And the 44 questions popped up from AA, and I got a perfect score. You know, woohoo! I answered yes to all 44 questions. I guess I'm an alcoholic. So I'm shaking, I'm crying, I'm freaking out. Don't know if I can drive. Call my mother, whose father was an alcoholic. My dad's dad was an alcoholic, and I'd known this my whole life, and I still drank. I still thought I could handle it, and I tried all the stuff. You know, I'll only drink on the weekends. I won't drink till after 5 o'clock. I won't drink before noon on Saturday. You know, whatever. None of it ever worked. I'll only have one. Yeah, well, one's not enough and two's too many, you know? So I went to this meeting and I met this guy, Bob Callahan, right at the door. And I'm shaking and crying and screaming. And he's like, listen, man, it's okay. He shook my hand. You're right where you need to be. There's some coffee over there. Sit and listen. If you want to talk, we'll talk. If not, I'll see you after the meeting. And for the next 90 days, I went wherever he told me to go. And I just listened, you know, and I talked every once in a while, and it just started to all make sense. Like, I'm not the only one that does this, you know?
Right,
And I was one of those guys that I had a bunch of yets. And those yets are, I hadn't gotten fired from a job. I hadn't got a DUI. I hadn't lost my house. My wife hadn't left. So who was I really hurting, right? That was my philosophy.
Right.
Well, after about 90 days, it was July 4th weekend, and I was working nights up in Cleveland. And all my family is out at the lake like they always do on July 4th. They're having a good time. They're barbecuing, they're cooking, they're drinking, and I'm stuck at work. And on the way home, I left work at 11 o'clock at night. It was an hour and a half drive home, and I'm crying the whole way, and I'm shaking, and I'm freaking out. I pull up my driveway, and I've got these giant ankle breakers. I call them rocks in my driveway.
Mm-hmm.
I opened my door. I fell to my knees. I threw my arms up, and I just said, I can't do this. Take this problem from me. I don't want it anymore. And I walked in the house. And I haven't had the urge to drink since.
Wow.
You know, that's my God moment. I'm not a religious guy. I'm a spiritual guy. I believe in karma.
Yep.
More spiritual than a being in a book.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that doesn't piss off too many people, but that's me.
But that's you. That's you.
That's
Don't
me.
worry
Right.
about pissing
Right.
people off.
So I went to 87 meetings in 90 days is what I did. And I kept going no matter where I was traveling. I'd stay in touch with my sponsors. It took about 4 years to be able to walk down the beer aisle without getting chills or anxious. I didn't buy my wife beer for 7 years, I think.
Wow.
And then finally I was comfortable enough to go start hanging out with with friends. And one thing that my wife had told me was, who are you going to call to come get you? Because you don't have any friends. Nobody likes you anymore. We don't hang out with anybody because you pissed everybody off. My cousin lived next door, but he was already there. Where's he going to take me? His house?
Right.
Shit, I'll walk right back, you know?
Right.
So, that kind of hit hard. And then, the first week of May of '08, so I'll backtrack a little bit. I got approved to be a flight engineer on C-130s in the Air Force Reserve. And that was my dream job. I always wanted to fly. I couldn't because I had glasses at a young age. I couldn't pass their vision test when I was old enough. I could be a civilian pilot, but not a military pilot. So it just wasn't going to happen. So when I finally got approved to fly at age 36, I was stoked, and I never looked back. I don't miss drinking. I don't miss the hangovers because the hangovers started lasting 2 and 3 days. I don't miss the craving, the obsession of the mind that I have to drink to have a good time. I just don't, and I absolutely am 100% grateful that I don't act like that. My relationship with my wife and kids is 100 times better than it ever was drinking. I have friends, I have family, people call, I do things. My life is so much better, and there's money in my pocket too. That's the other thing. You don't realize how much you're drinking, how much you're spending on alcohol, that you're essentially pissing away. And it's 10 times better now. So,
well, kudos to you for having the courage and the cojones to stop the cycle, right? Because, I mean, number one, that takes balls, but it takes guts, and not only doing it for you, but doing it for your family, right? You think about your kids and how that generational trauma can continue down the road as well, saying, well, dad was alcoholic, and it'd be the same story on, until somebody that has courage to go, it has to stop somewhere.
Yeah, my son has no recollection of me drinking, none whatsoever, and he just turned 16.
Wow.
And Julia, my middle daughter, she doesn't like to drink. She does drink, but she doesn't like I did. And then my daughter, my Air Force daughter, is the quintessential crew chief. Work hard, play hard. Excuse me, but she's very responsible about it. Which is what I did too. I drank at home, or I had a driver. I didn't drink and drive. I never got in trouble for it. Always went to work. I was Airman of the Month. I can't tell you how many times, 4 times in a year once. And, I got medals and awards, and always made my jobs, and always made my deployments. And there was never a problem. So it was to be woken up by the wife saying, you got to go. You can't stay here. Was the eye opener. And you say I did it only, not only for me, but for my family. I'm a staunch advocate for, you're not good for anybody if you don't take care of yourself first.
Right.
And to have to take care of myself, and that problem made everything else better. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can't take care of somebody else if you're not taking care of yourself.
Well said. Well said. So, did your suicide attempt, now, did this happen after you were in recovery?
Oh yeah, it happened 8 years in. I was I had just retired from the Air Force in September 11th, actually 2015 was my retirement date. And around September, October of 16, I'd had an argument with the wife again. And one of the things that she said resonated, and I don't even remember what the argument was. I don't remember what caused it. I just remember these lines. And if I can use her exact words were, nobody fucking likes you. Your kids don't want to be around you. I don't want to be around you. You've been sober for 8 fucking years. When is it going to change? And I just I froze. Like, maybe she's right. Maybe they are better off without me. So I went upstairs, grabbed my 45, got down in my truck, grabbed a $100 bill, went down to the bar, sat in the parking lot crying, was going to go buy a bottle of Jack straight from the bar, chug it, and eat a bullet in my truck. And about a week prior, I'd had a little altercation with the VA shrink who had told me, based on what you've told me, there's nothing I can do for you.
Mm.
Well, 3 days later, I ran out of the meds that I was on that she had given me. And one of the withdrawals is suicidal tendencies. So something in my brain, something in that moment told me, wait a minute, this isn't you. This isn't how you think. You need to make a phone call. So I called an AA buddy. I asked him if he was going to be down at the church that night. He said, yeah, I'm on my way now. So I showed up, cried with him for a couple hours, got up the next day, and I called the VA. And I said, hey, last night I was ready to suck start a pistol. I'm ready to kill myself. What the hell's going on? And I kid you not, uh, the lady on the line said, please hold, you know, and, the sick, twisted bastard in me said, all right, where are you going to send me? Where am I going with this? And this was before they had the automatic answering thing that
Sure.
says, look, if you're having thoughts of suicide, call 1-800-273-8255 and, or go to the emergency. They didn't have any of that yet. And I called another buddy with Safe 22, Jason, and I said, bro, something's wrong. I don't know what the hell's going on. Called another buddy, Dave. He said, I'll be there tonight. He lives about an hour and a half away. He showed up, took all my weapons out of the house, told me to go see my local doc. So I just drove down to the local doc and I said, I got a problem. And they put me right in. I talked to this lady for probably 40 minutes. She gave me some like relaxers, anxiety meds to calm me down for a while until I got in to see a shrink. She hooked me up with a shrink and a med doc. The shrink actually did her internship for 3 years at the VA. It's supposed to be a 6-month rotation. She did 3 years, and she listened to me, and that was the big deal. She listened to what I was going through, how I felt, what the meds did to me, how I didn't like what the meds did, how I did like what certain meds did, and she listened. That was the big deal. So many times I find in the VA, they're just trying to process you through. Now, this might not be everybody's experience, but it was mine.
Mm-hmm.
And for her to take the time to listen to me and allow me to cry and tell her, look, this is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is what I want to feel like. I don't know why I don't feel like this. And she worked with me for probably 2 years. And we got pretty close with the meds. And one thing I need to stress here, if you're seeing a shrink or a meds doctor and you think that those meds are going to fix you in one dose or 1 week or 1 month, you're crazy. That stuff takes a lot of time and you have to be regimented with it. You have to be disciplined. Take it at the same time every day. Don't miss a dose. Be honest with yourself about how it makes you feel. Be honest with yourself about what you like and what you don't like. I had a couple of them meds that I was a zombie.
Mm.
Like I had no ups, no downs. I couldn't get happy. I couldn't get sad. And all I wanted to do was eat ice cream and sleep on the couch. I put on 60 pounds in that year after
Wow.
that. And it got to the point where I wanted nothing to do with anybody, and all I can say is I'm grateful for Jason and Safe 22 for, checking on me, getting me on my motorcycle to go ride with them. I'm grateful for Dave for coming down. It's going to make me fucking tear up. Dave came down that night. He dropped everything he was doing, came down. He took every weapon out of my house. And when he left, he hugged me and he just said, okay, man, it's going to be okay. We'll get through it together. And here I am 4.5 years later, and I still call that guy. I still call Jason. He still knows when something's not right, and I want to give it back. I want to, there's a saying in AA that you got to give it away to keep it. And I didn't quite understand that for the longest time. I get joy, I get gratification, satisfaction out of others asking me for help. It's not arrogant, it's not egotistical, it's not selfish. It keeps me sober, it keeps me grounded, it keeps me wanting to wake up in the morning and not end it all. So where I'm at, man. You know, it's a crazy ass story, but it's funny, you know, now with this podcast 6 months in, how many other guys have contacted me and said, yeah, man, I get the same thing, you know? Or I told one guy, he asked, how do you deal with the anxiety and the ADD? And I said, it's like I have 1,000 browser windows open in my head and I can focus on one for 30 seconds, but then I'm jumping to the next.
Sure.
You know, all over the place sometimes. And it's very difficult sometimes to just calm my mind to say, this is what I have to focus on. And that's what I need to finish. And I have to set that goal. My goal today is I need to do 3 lessons of review, and then I can do whatever else I want. Don't pick up my phone. Don't get on Facebook. Don't try to edit a podcast. Focus on that, and then you can move on. So,
very cool. Well, let me be the first to say, John, and I'm sure that you've heard this before, but very glad that you made the decision that night, or decisions maybe something bigger than you said, you know what? God damn it, you have bigger shit to do. You're staying around, damn it. Not getting out of this easy. You know, we need you around. And so I'm glad that you made the decision to stick around. So you said about 6 months ago, you decided that, hey, I need something to do. Straight talk.
Yeah.
I need something to do, right? It's like you didn't have enough time going around the garage trying to look for your 10mm socket. Oh. You needed a podcast. So take us into a little bit of the birth of this thing.
So Save 22 again calls me up and says, there's a race going on at Mid-Ohio, track out by Mansfield this weekend. We'd like you to be our representative. All right, what do you want me to do? Take some pictures, kiss some babies? I mean, what do you want? No, man, you know, take your gloves, take your stuff, and you might be wrenching. Don't know. Depends on how well you fit in. I'm like, man, I don't know. I've never done an open wheel car before. You know, I built late models and super lates and Winston West cars out west when I was there, and did some modified stuff here at home. And I never been on an open wheel car. I don't know what I'm doing. And they're like, that's fine. No big deal. Call this guy right here. He'll meet you at the gate. You can go in. And one thing about me, or most of the veterans that I meet, when we're asked to go somewhere where we don't know anybody, we don't want to go. It sounds great. It sounds like a time of our lives. But unless I know somebody there, I talk myself out of it for days up to the event. And I almost didn't go. And I called Brandon, who is with Alliance Racing in the Formula 4 series. And he said, just meet me out here. He says, you want to bring your wife, bring your wife. It's fine. Just come hang out with us. He turns out he's a Marine veteran. So we start talking, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go. So I go, and it was absolutely incredible. I'm just around all these race cars. They had a 6-car team at the time. I'm watching all these vintage race cars run around Mid-Ohio. Yeah, it was incredible. And this is a driver development series. So these kids are young, 16 to 18, 19 years old. Some of them are older rich guys that are just, you know, having fun on the weekends. But this one kid, David Burkett, his mom is this little 5'1" Louisiana girl, sweet as can be, backwoods Louisiana, southern drawl, black as night, thinking I got nothing in common with this woman, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I got invited to come back the next day to this race. And then he says, I want to offer you a job. I'm like, wait a minute. What kind of job? He said, well, I want you to wrench on the cars, but I only want you to wrench at the racetrack. want you to be a fly-in mechanic, and I need you down in Virginia next month. Let me think about it. Okay, sure. Right? So I show up in Virginia, and Sonia, David's mom, comes to me and says, we didn't get to talk a lot at Mid-Ohio, but I want to hear about this Safe 22 stuff. Sure. So when I got a break, I went over and I talked to her, and what was supposed to be a quick 5-minute dissertation on Safe 22 turned into 30-minute condensed version of my alcoholism, my suicide attempt, my deployments. And we're both end up crying in each other's arms in the garage at Virginia. And she just puts her hand out on me, on my chest, and just says, there's something bigger for you. I don't know what it is. Can I have your phone number and call you in a few days? Yeah, sure. Now let me clean myself up and go back to fixing these race cars, you know? But she calls me a few days later and says, I think you need to do a podcast or a video thing or 10-minute YouTube videos or something to just tell your story. I'm like, you know, that's funny you say that. I thought about it a few years ago. I got into it a minute, got kind of lost in all the available platforms out there. I didn't really know what I was doing. And she says, I'm willing to set you up pro bono, promote you, help you through it. And my husband is an award-winning editor with CNN, NPR, BET, that kind of stuff. Nice. And he'll edit your podcast for you. I'm like, wow. All right, what do you want me to do? So she tells me to make a little quick intro, a little teaser. So I did. And she called me up and she was crying. She's like, it's perfect. It's exactly what you want. Now, a little bit about Sonia. She's a public speaker, and she speaks on mental health. Okay. And her daughter is a mental health professional as well, a social worker in Maryland. And she understood where I was coming from and the power of being able to communicate your story and your feelings and your emotions to others. And it just kind of took off, you know. Ideally, it was supposed to be me telling my story in pieces, and I wanted to tell about Safe 22. So I got Jason to come on, who's the co-founder of Safe 22. So he tells his story. And then I got Albert, the president of Safe 22, and he tells his story. And then a couple of my buddies are like, man, you're doing an awesome thing. Can I tell my story? Absolutely. Come on and tell your story. And then that morphed into, there's this veterans organization in Toledo called Hooves. And I think you need to talk to them. They're helping our veterans equine services. So she uses equine therapy to help veterans. And she does monthly retreats. It's Amanda Held with Hooves. And she morphed it over into Jason Graven, who's with Task Force 22, who provides nutrition and fitness support to veterans in need all over the country. It doesn't matter where. And then that led into me being at the SAM Center in Massillon, which is serving area military veterans and widows, handing out food one day to less fortunate veterans. And I run into Bob Moore. Bob Moore is on that list of individuals who did 9 years in the reserves, but's not classified a veteran because he never deployed. Excuse me. Bob's got an incredible story. He was the podcast 2 weeks ago where Bob ended up getting into drugs, and he got into drugs so bad that he ended up being HIV positive. Now Bob takes that drive and that motivation that he has, and he runs 100-mile marathons.
Oh, wow.
And he tells his story, and he's on Zoom meetings every week. And just last night, I missed it, but last night he told his story to a nationwide AA group on Zoom. You know, those are the kind of stories that I want to share, that I want people to know that there's good in this world. There's great people out there that will drop everything and come help you. You just have to be willing to ask for it. So that's kind of where this took off. And right now I'm at, 1,500 downloads in 5.5 months, and nice. I'm cool with that.
Nice.
The thing I'm most proud of, Dean, is every episode I or the guest has been contacted by at least one person saying that story touched me, or that story drove me to go get help.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
And that's what it's about for me. So that's where we're at now, man. And I mean, I had Jim and Tiffany on Facebook, Bushel and a Peck of Love, sent me a water cooler with my logo on it. And then she calls me up and says, "Hey, I want to make some t-shirts for you." Really? Like, why? Well, I just think, maybe you'd want to get them out there. Well, I don't have any money for the startup. That's all right. When you sell them, pay me then. Like, people just come out of the woodwork to help, and that's what it's about, in my opinion. Just having that network, just having that availability to say, you know what, I don't know where to go, but I bet John does. And if John doesn't, he knows somebody that
Right.
knows where to go,
Right.
and that's all I want to do.
Right. Well, I just love it because when you come from a heart space, John, and are showing up so authentically. You talked about one of the things about asking for help, but also being willing to be seen, right?
Right.
And I just love it because when I first started doing the podcast thing and looking for people to spotlight, kind of like you are, so they could tell their story and with the intent that that story can help somebody else. But in doing it, what I have found is that really it started creating this. It brings out a subculture of just great people doing. It's like layers, and it's just like, holy crap! I didn't, it's like I didn't realize there's, there was anybody there, and then it's like, holy shit, there's more here, and there's holy crap, there's more here, and it's like, but when you start looking for, it's just the aspect of. Remember back in the day, maybe I don't know what your first car was, but the old aspect.
1971 Chevy Nova.
Well, there you go. That old Chevy Nova. You probably didn't notice Novas on the road before then, but once you had it, so once you start looking for something, it comes out of the woodwork, right?
Right.
And that's the thing. Like you said, John, is there are good people all around us doing tremendous things. And you know what makes me so sad? It makes me so sad that this is part of it. It makes me happy that there's great and kick-ass people doing great things, but it also makes me sad that we're in a moment or this environment that where these folks have to fill in the voids and where they have to, and it's great that they're doing it. And don't get me wrong, but there's part of me that's a little sad saying there is so much hurting and there's so many people falling through the cracks. People are, hey, I see an area that, nothing's being addressed over here. And they start up through the need through a nonprofit or the struggle that they go through individually, right? Or whether it's for-profit, nonprofit, doesn't matter. They see a need and they address it, right?
Right.
And so part of my heart is kind of torn because it's like, I love the aspect that they're willing to step up and fill that, uplift others. But then part of me is kind of sad saying, there's a lot of hurt, that a lot of people in need. But I think the cool thing is, John, is, and you touch on it, is just the sheer number of people that are doing good.
Right.
And I think we need to hear more. People out there need to hear more about the do-gooders out there doing kick-ass things for other people. So people continually believe in, the great works, because there's so much just crap going on in the world, right?
There is. And that's, I think I know where you're getting at. And, the far left 1%, the far right 1% is what gets newsworthy.
Yeah.
And my opinion, 94% of this country is good people.
Yep.
94% of us. That's my guesstimate. That's not mathematical. That's not some statistic I read. That's not off of Wiki or Google, That's my contention, because in my area where I'm at, in my little bubble of Ohio, I don't see bad people. I mean, there are bad people, but I have a circle of friends that I can call, and I can say I'm in trouble, and probably half of those guys will be here, you know? And that's what we need. I would rather have 3 close friends than 300 friends. You know, if I keep my circle small and I know what these people want from me, which is nothing but my friendship, I'm good with it. What hurts me is that we have to have individuals like you and I that want to spread the good, and we see the good and we promote the good, and it doesn't. I don't do it for recognition. I don't think you do it for
Right.
recognition
No.
either. I don't do it to fill my pocketbook. I don't do it to make my bank account big. I do it because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
And that's not what gets out. What gets
Right.
out is, well, he's a pedophile. He's a sexual harasser. He embezzled money. She did this. He did that.
Right.
Look, man, we're good people. We are good people.
Yeah.
And the veteran community is some of the best this country has ever had to offer, ever.
Yeah.
You talked about it earlier where you run into that post-Vietnam pre-Desert Storm group. I've met some guys in there who were active duty and, you know, never left San Jose, New Mexico, or were
Yeah.
San Jose, California, or, you know, they didn't have to go anywhere. They didn't have to do anything. Or they went to Panama for 100 hours and came back. Or they went to Grenada after the Beirut thing for 2 days, you know, or whatever it was. Or they staged in Poland. And they tell me, you know, I can't hear now. I've got a jacked up knee. I got to have it replaced, but I lost my job last year. I'm like, did you ever apply for VA benefits? Well, no, I didn't know I qualified. Did you serve? Yeah. Were you honorably discharged? Yeah. Well, then you qualify. Well, nobody ever told me. Well, we probably did, but we weren't listening back then. We weren't thinking, I'm going to be 65 and not have a job or insurance. You know, we weren't thinking about that.
Right.
So I run into so many of those guys, and they're so grateful for the SAM Center, for the veteran service offices in every county in Ohio. All 88 counties has a veteran service commission.
Nice.
Where veterans go. I think we have the highest or the second highest veteran per capita population in the country is here in Ohio. And, you know, we need these things. You know, it's not just the VA, it's not just the American Legion, it's not just the VFW. There's plenty of others. And my generation, your generation of veterans, we're different than go sit at a bar and tell stories. We want to be out. We have a different platform with all these social media deals where we can spread the positivity, we can share links, we can put stuff out there for instant notice. But we don't get viral, you know. We don't get viral, and I'm okay with that.
That's all right.
I'm not a 5'10", 135-pound blonde with 36 double Ds dancing in a bikini, you know.
Well, and if you were, you know, it'd be a completely different show, but
be a different show.
But here's one thing I wanted to get back to, John.
Sure.
You're talking about those friends that you have that you said you can call on, right?
Right.
If I was to take you back in a time machine 6-8 years ago, could you say the same thing?
No.
So the thing that I was going to say, you know, based on your story was, and I just wanted to bring this about for people to think about, we are the creators really of our reality.
We are.
And if we foster those relationships and really want the, how do I want to say, the network around us for those friends, those buddies, whatever, we got to go out and we got to foster those. This just doesn't show up, right? And it's like, so, you know, if we're the asshat, you know, nobody wants to hang around, we're going to be sitting by yourself hearing crickets, right? And that's the thing that I wanted to bring up was because the contrast to your story of the you 6 years ago and the you now. Mm-hmm. And where you talk about this great network around you now, that you have this great group of people that if you called, you could get the support. But that wasn't the case 6-8 years ago.
No, not at all. And, you know, I just saw a thing this morning that said you can't charge a battery with a dead battery.
Right.
you know.
That's for sure.
And we've all heard it from our parents. I don't like the crowd you're hanging out with. They're
Yep.
not good for you. You know,
Yep.
you need to hang out with a better crowd.
Yep.
We don't realize it until we're a parent that our parents were right. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah. You gotta live through it to understand it sometimes, right?
Right. And you don't think about it when you're in that moment of drunk or drinking or going to
Yep.
work and you're monotonous. I'm up at 4:30. I'm at work at 6. I'm off clock at 4:30. I'm home by 6. I'm drunk by 7:30. I'm in bed by 9. You don't think about that stuff.
Right.
Now I am in a position where my body hurts because of the injuries that I have. It doesn't hurt because I'm hungover. It doesn't hurt because I fell down a flight of stairs. It hurts because of my experiences and what my story has given me to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with that. What my experiences have given me is a group of people who are like-minded, 90% veteran, who enjoy motorcycles and helping other people. And I could not ask for anything more. My wife and I have been together for, this will be 24 years this year. And we've been married 20. So she has
Congratulations.
Thank you. She has been through all this. She's been through deployments. She's been through the alcoholism. She's been through flight school, survival school, 50 combat and combat support missions in the C-130 over the Middle East. She's been through all that, and she's still here. So that speaks volumes to her. And I wouldn't change a thing with her because, you know, so many people have a regret of what they were like. I don't have a regret of what I was like because it made me who I am today.
Right.
You know, she has said a few times recently that she's so very happy now. And she's grateful that I've done what I've done. And she lets me do my thing down here in the basement. You know, I got my man cave set up, my podcast. You know, we've both been working from home for about a year, so we, you know, tend to get on each other's nerves every now and again. But
sure,
I have my solace. She has her solace, and communication is the key. If you're, I think I'm trying to get where you want me to go, and I'm trying to get there. And it's just
it's
like
all right.
Said, it's those 1,000 browser windows open right now.
That's John. I was going to say, have you and your wife talked about doing a joint like podcast talk about, you know, sharing? You're great at sharing your story. Oh, is that see? I must be psychic or something.
It's on the list.
You know, and because there are so many, and I know there's women out there going, "Oh my God, Dean, just say it." But saying because there are military spouses,
right.
loved ones, whatever, that have went through the similar things that she went through, and it's unique unto the spouse.
Right.
It's completely different from the military member aspect, and a lot of times the military or the family member is just forgotten about. They mention them and they say that they, you know, but then the story continues and there's a whole other story there that happens at home.
Yes. Military spouses should automatically qualify for singlehood. Period. End of story. You know, they put up with everything back here. They put up with us when we come back here and we're not right. And we don't know why we're not right. I don't like the word disease, like for PTS. It should just be PTS, post-traumatic stress. And that's trying to be, look, man, I left my 8-week-old son in the arms of my mother or my wife screaming as I got on a bus to leave for 2 months overseas. I left them 2 more times after they were born, and then 3 more times after that. And they deal with all that, and they don't. She never complained. She never yelled at me until I retired, and then I took a job where I had to travel. And then she's like, "Look, I've done my time as a traveler. You need to stay home now." But to get back to what you're saying, I have thought about it. It's actually in the list of ideas for the Straight Talk podcast, where I would bring in military spouses to talk about their experiences
Yeah.
of what the veteran was like, and what they're like now. My wife does not wish to talk about that kind of stuff. It's painful for her,
Sure.
and that's okay. That's okay. Not everybody, not everybody can talk about that kind of stuff.
Yep. That's right.
And I can't hold that against her. One of the biggest things that I had to get through my head as an alcoholic was, it's my problem, not her problem. I had this huge resentment against her that she wasn't helping me with this, until those AA guys got 100% honest with me and just started laughing when I'd come in mad at them. They're like, "What are you mad about?" I'm like, "Well, she's not doing this and she is doing this, and that just," and they'd start laughing. "What are you laughing for? It's your problem. It ain't hers. You fix it. You fix that. Maybe she'll be there. Maybe she won't." You know what? You're right. And that took a long time. That took a very, very long time to come to grips with, to understand what they were talking about.
Right.
And one of the things that I've wanted to do now is, I have this big deck out back where I wanted to set up a couple cameras, a couple microphones, and I wanted to have the veterans outside next to the fire, and we're just telling stories. And inside would be the wives telling stories about us and their experiences, and then try to listen to them both at the same time and see how they talk compared to how we talk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How do we see ourselves? How do they see us?
That might be interesting.
Right?
But it would be interesting to hear. And I mean, they're so, just.
Well, we have this, an individual has an opinion of themselves. This is how I think I see myself. And then when you talk to somebody else and say, "How do you see me?" 99 times out of 100, they're not going to be 100% honest with you. I want 100% honesty. What do you see when you see me? Yeah. How was I before I got sober? How was I before I had that suicide attempt? How am I now?
Right.
I want an honest assessment. I want you to tell me.
Right.
And until you can be 100% honest with yourself and listen to someone being 100% honest, man, can you imagine if we could live that way?
Right. Right.
Wouldn't that be incredible?
So it's interesting.
It's on the docket. It's on the docket.
It's interesting. So my wife is always very open and honest. And one of the things that one of my daughters always into astrology signs, she's like, "Dad, that's because she's always like a Taurus. They're always," and it's like, they're not mean. They're just honest. They got to be honest. And I was like, well, she keeps it real, because she's always I know with my wife, she's like, "Do you want to hear my opinion?" And I was like, "You're going to give it to me anyways." And whether I want to hear it or not, I mean, sometimes we need that.
We have to.
Yeah. And it keeps us humble, right? Because it keeps us in check, because sometimes we get out there flapping and we need to bring it in and be like, "Oh shit, how did I get over there?" Right? Keeps us out of trouble.
Oh, you're 100% right, man. You're 100% right. I had a moment the other day where she had moved the coffee pot from one corner 90 degrees over to the other corner, and it pissed me off, because the coffee's not above the coffee maker. Coffee's over here now. Not a real big damn deal, but it was to me at that day. So I got mad. I said something to her, and she, Dean, I'm not kidding you, she put her coffee cup down right there, turned around, looked at me, and said, "If you're going to be a fucking asshole today, go ahead and leave," and walked into the living room. And I'm like, God damn, that hurt, And I thought about it for a minute. You know what? She's right. It's not that big of a deal. Go in and apologize. So I walked in, I took her the coffee cup, and I set it down, and she goes, "No." I went to say, "No, you're not talking. I'm going to be mad for a minute, and I'll let you know when I'm not mad anymore." And I'm like, you know what? She's right. I just need to leave her be. You got to have that companion that can be that 100% brutal honest with you.
Yeah.
Say, "You're being an asshole right now, and I didn't do anything to deserve this. So check yourself."
Right.
So yeah, it would be interesting if I could get her on. It would be interesting.
Well, whether it's your wife or otherwise, I think that's really important though, but it's also giving not just a military member a voice, but the military spouses or veteran spouses, whatever the other half, and because
Right.
whatever label you want to use, I don't know anymore, but I think that's powerful. John, where can they go to check you out? Where can they check out your podcast?
So the podcast is available on all major platforms. Johnny Mo Media, Straight Talk, STR, the number 8, TALK, Straight Talk. Or you can go to the website, johnnymomedia.com. They're all listed there. They pop up. They fill live, populate live, whatever it is when I release them. Facebook and Instagram at Johnny Mo Media. You can reach out there. Email me, johnnymomedia@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you, your story. Talk to me, vent, whatever you want. You need help. We do a lot with, I don't want to say job placement, but we'll help you with how to write a resume. Save 22 does a fantastic job of connecting veterans with resources in their area, whether that be a guy that needs equine therapy or say he's an outdoorsman and he wants to fish. We do fishing trips out in the Carolinas and up on Lake Erie. We have a motorsports outreach program. We can help you with that if you're a gearhead, if you want to bust your knuckles up a little bit. We're in NHRA, we're in Nationwide Series or Xfinity Series now, I'm sorry, with Mike Harmon Racing. NHRA with Lex June, who I just did an interview and released that last night. He's an amazing individual. That guy packed up all his stuff from Amsterdam in a 40-foot shipping container and moved here because he had won everything in Europe and he wanted to race with the big boys. So he moved straight into Indianapolis. He's a truck driver by trade. He works full-time as a truck driver. The wife works full-time at O'Reilly's, and he races in NHRA Top Fuel.
Wow.
I mean, just an incredible dude.
That's some cojones.
Oh, his mantra is never quit.
Right.
Never quit. And that's what drew us to him and him to us is we have to have this never quit attitude,
Yeah.
And he's amazing.
Yeah. Well, my friend, thank you so much for being a guest today. You guys heard it, Johnny Mo Media, Straight Talk. Go check it out. John Moser, thank you so much for being a guest today. I do appreciate it. And thank you for what you continue to do. And I'd like to just say again, John, thanks for sticking around in this world. We need more John Mosers, and thanks for continually spreading the good word. We need more folks out there, kind of putting ripples in the pond, so to speak. Well, thank you for those kind words. I'd like to return the sentiment, man. Thanks for doing what you're doing too. We just have to keep doing what we're doing, and eventually we will be the majority. The happiness, the positivity. We'll take over and keep doing what you're doing. And I hope you can come on my show someday. Absolutely, I'd love it, John.